Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. This is Egberto Willis, your host. We're kind of late because we're having some technical problems, and as I sit here with you, I am still seeing some drop packets that I don't understand and some CPU overuse that I don't understand, something that I'm going to have to take into account. Please, folks, go ahead and let me know what kind of performance you are seeing with respect to the videos. I am going to actually what I need to do here is go ahead and change to another network here so that I can actually bring up some browsers on the other side. I'm interested to find out if we are coming over with chops or without chops, how are we doing, etc., etc., etc. So anyhow, we have a great show for you today. I am going to go ahead and get our interview started with Arturo Dominguez so that I can take care of a few things here, housekeeping, to try to clean this stuff up. Anyway, let's go ahead and listen to Arturo Dominguez. Welcome to another edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willis. Today we are honored to have Arturo Dominguez. He's a prolific writer, and he is the founder and editor at The Antagonist magazine, among many others. Recently, Arturo was elevated to a leadership position at WEOC, Woke, Writers and Editors of Color. He is with us today to discuss many subjects, including his recent 1619 Project article. Arturo, I think this is the second or third, or maybe four times you've been here with Politics Done Right. It's a pleasure, as usual, to have you with us. How are you doing today?
Oh man, happy to be here. Thanks for having me back.
Well, look, man, I tell you, you are the one who actually introduced me to Woke, a group that I found quite interesting, a group that I found relaxing, and I mean, it just brought one's spirit up. Why don't you, before we get into the subject at hand, tell us how you got involved with this particular group?
Well, with Woke, it was founded by two Black women, Teresa Price and Allison Gaines, and it was more of a medium-centered type of project or community. I'm one of the first few that were invited in early on. And I was at the time I was in search of some kind of community. I've been a member of writer groups that were predominantly white, and it's hard to, when you're doing anti-racism work and touching on things that others don't normally touch on, they're uncomfortable. So being in a group that was very Anglo-centric made it difficult. There's a lot of pushback. I mean, instantly get kicked out for no reason, things like that. So when I came across this, and it was very early on, one of the editors at Medium, Adrienne Gibbs, who's a member of the group, she quickly supported it, and then Quintessa got involved, and LA Justice got involved with managing our case for the 1619 Project. And before long, I found myself in a community that was welcoming to someone they consider of color, but is white passing. And it was interesting because I found myself in the group that was being run by Black women, and every one of them embraced me as their own. And I treat everything, especially in Black spaces, treat it as being a guest. By having that mentality, I feel like you're not necessarily walking on eggshells, but you're more cautious about what you say. I think that if white people took that same approach and came from a place of more asking questions as opposed to pushing, beliefs or whatever on people, then we could probably move further. So I found that in this community. I found a willingness from a lot of writers that were anti-racism writers that were willing to put the stuff out there to try to make a difference, not just talk about it, but potentially offer solutions to problems. And I found that a big selling point for me.
Well, I can tell you, just based on the adoration that folks have for you in that group, you are not a guest man. You are the group, and in fact, you were one of the first that they asked to, as they did some restructuring, to ask to become a part of the leadership of that group. So congratulations about that.
Thank you. Thank you.
One of the ways that I really got involved with you is when you addressed the Black Latino issue. In other words,
Right.
and you took a whole lot of flack from maybe passing Latinos, as you just well, passing white Latinos, as you kind of made, and you took a lot of flack for it. This is not the subject of today's discussion, but why don't you tell us a little bit about that? Because what I always say about you is you've got some pelotas, dude.
Yeah. I appreciate that. I attribute my pelotas to, my upbringing, man, in Jersey. In the 70s and 80s, it wasn't pretty. It was tough, and so yeah, I took that approach. When it comes to the backlash, I'm a pushback kind of guy. Everybody wants to take the approach of just stop, don't interact with anybody, stop, just let it go, let it die down. But the problem is, the more you ignore it, the bigger the fire gets, and it doesn't die down. And I'm not gonna sit here and denounce cancel culture and all that stuff. It is what it is. Call it what you want. But to me, I call it consequence culture. But you say racist things, you're gonna pay for it.
Right.
So. But the backlash I got, I still get it. I still get backlash.
Yeah, because that article went viral.
Right, and I mean, if you look at the Latino Rebels page right now, and you open an article, or you scroll to the bottom of the main page, mine is still top 5 trending, and that's been a year and a couple months now.
Right.
So people are still reading it. People are still clicking from there to the tweets that are highlighted in the article, which are my tweets. And I still catch some heat here and there. I got one guy who he read like the first paragraph and then wrote a rebuttal calling me racist and all this stuff, and he's never read my work. He admitted he didn't read the article, but man, every Friday, like clockwork, he's trolling me, and I laugh, and I troll him right back. I don't play around. I don't block people. I don't. People threaten me because of that article. I had people trying to dox me, and I could tell that's what they were doing. And I told them, look, dude, dox me, don't dox me. You want me to give you my address? I'll give you my address, but
it's not like they can't find it. I've been doxed so many times, it ain't funny,
Right, and and what I tell people that threaten me, I tell them, come on, come to my house, because you might think I'm some fragile liberal or whatever, but I probably have more guns than you. So you know what I mean? And that's what I tell people. I'm like, go ahead, dude. I dare you. I'm waiting for you to come to my door. Okay, so just come.
Yeah, I mean, these guys are generally just mouthpieces. You and I know. So every now and then you have the crazy that really goes through with these things.
Yeah.
And I think that you just have to be always watchful, and whether you're a writer or not, you always have to be watchful. Now, tell me a little bit about at Woke. You are a part of the 1619 project submission of articles, and you submitted a recent article with respect to Latinos in 1619. Why don't you tell me a little bit about that?
Okay, well, our 1619 project, just to clarify, is not the same as the Nicole Hannah Jones and the New York Times 1619 project. Our project is focused on making the case for the 1619 project. So one of the main categories that we have it broken down into 5 different categories. I can't name them off the top of my head, but for the sake of this one, my piece was focused on addressing criticisms, and most of the stuff that I read went after a lot of the white academics who basically teamed up, and wrote a scathing op-ed to the New York Times, claiming all these errors, this, that, and the other. Not differentiating the fact that the 1619 project from the New York Times is more of a journalistic piece than it is a historical piece, right? And the idea of the 1619 project is to frame the narrative of what built the U.S., right? Beginning with that day, that
1619, yeah.
Port Comfort, right? Like, we all know that day. And a lot of the arguments from the Latino community came from a lot of Afro-Latinos that were, their argument was that Black history in the United States started prior to 1619. And while that's true, to a degree. None of those, the Spaniards landing in
Panama.
St. Augustine in the 1500s, right? But way before 1619. That didn't affect how the United States was built. It didn't, it happened. Nobody's denying it happened. But the 1619 project's focus is from that day in Port Comfort is how today's American capitalist society lives. And we all know that the capitalism in the United States can only thrive on exploited labor. Mm-hmm. And without the slave labor force, you have, what I've heard people refer to as wage slaves, which is basically, you've got all these Latinos working the fields, harvesting food, feeding the nation, and they're not only being paid dirt, but they're being treated like dirt. They live in, squalid conditions, things like that. So the 1619 project acknowledges those little things. So my piece was focused on clapping back on those that they really went after Nicole Hannah-Jones and the 1619 project, and I thought it was unfair, and I also thought it was in bad faith. I thought the arguments were disingenuous, because they failed to read just the main entry point to the 1619 project, which essentially discusses that it's a living document. It may have some errors, and there may be a few things missing here and there, but for the sake of focusing on on U.S. history and what it's become today, that's what they're missing. You see,
Let me ask you something, because I think you in stating that in one of the statements that you just made, I think you may have co-opted to saying there were in fact some errors in the 1619 project as written by Hannah-Jones. Is that really the case, or is just the who tells the history that really makes these errors?
I honestly think it's a little of both. There were a couple of errors, and it was really just, like, for context, they needed to add a word here or something like that,
So, and these were corrected at the New York Times, right?
Right. These were corrected and addressed, per journalistic integrity, mm-hmm. that the edits were made, that was brought to their attention. But when you read, if you just focus on the one scathing op-ed that was published at the New York Times, and they addressed it directly, which I commend them for. They even gave those guys space to talk their trash. But if you read that, I think that's more focused on, I feel like it's more focused on who's telling the history.
Exactly.
And
that's what I wanted to get at, because right. I think too often, even the parts of history that one interprets, it is subject to interpretation. Did the Americans commit genocide in America or not? Yes, they would say, well, they attacked us, and we'll say, well, you took their land. That's it. So it's a matter of who tells the story. Anyhow, so now, do you think that the Latinos, the Afro-Latinos that came against Hannah-Jones on these articles were pretty much used, wanted, because we always have that problem, right? You get a Candace Owen or this new guy that wrote a book about wokeness or whatever it is he wrote about. I can't remember his name right now. Are these guys just being used for their hue, for their color, as a weapon, as a person that they can say, look, even this guy thinks you're wrong?
I know a lot of people pointed to that. I can't say that the motivations of some of the Afro-Latinos, and some, from the academic community and stuff too, I can't say that their motivations were anything like that, but I do know that you saw a lot of people point to these individuals and say, look, here's somebody else that disagrees with it too, and they're Black, and again, they're failing to realize the difference between being an Afro-Latino and being Black in America. There's a big cultural divide there, in my article, I mentioned how certain religions from, Central and Western Africa still live and still thrive in Latin America, all over the
Mhm.
place, from Cuba to Colombia. Well, in the U.S., aside from like areas in Louisiana, that identity's not
There's
there.
no history of that.
Right. It's
Santeria and
been
all these other
right.
things, you know?
It's all wiped out. So the Black community, that's why they're Black, and they're not, Congolese or what have you. It's because all of that stuff was erased.
Right.
So, for Afro Latinos, like in Cuba, there's, direct connections to parts of Western Africa and things, and they celebrate that. And, people don't realize it, but, Cuba's a majority, Black and
Cuba,
mestizo
Brazil,
country.
and several other Latin American countries. Yeah,
Right,
Caribbean countries. Yeah.
right. They're predominantly Black, and they understand where, they came from. They understand that how their religions eventually mixed with Catholicism. That's how you got Santeria. And I mean, again, Santeria was born of, Western African spiritualism and, blended with a little bit of Catholicism, because, that's what the slaves had to do to make it acceptable to the priests. They had to inject a piece of Catholicism so that, the priests were like, cool, you're worshiping Jesus, fine.
Right.
And that's how those religions were born. You don't have that here in the US. And, that's why I feel like, I don't know, Allison one day mentioned me being pro-Black, and I've never considered
Explain who
myself to be
Allison is first of
pro-Black.
all for the audience. Because
Allison is one of the founders of Writers and Editors of Color, Allison Gaines. And we were in a chat one day, just, I don't remember what we were discussing, but she mentioned that I was, pro-Black Latino writer, and I never saw myself that way, but once she mentioned it, it kind of opened up like another door where I was looking at my work from that light, and I thought, I guess I am a pro-Black
well, I
Latino
mean,
writer, because I mean, at the end of the day, when I ended my 1619 Project article, and I have it pulled up, but I said at the very end, I said, because without Black people, the American dream wouldn't exist. In a sense, everyone owes them for that, even
right.
the immigrants and Afro Latinos.
Even the Afro Latinos, exactly.
Right. So yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it. And I get from that aspect, being that we owe them first, and we owe the indigenous people first before anybody else. And if you look at it from that perspective, then you can begin to understand, why we need to uplift them first.
Well, you call it, maybe Allison calls it pro-Black. I find you to be a writer, an author that actually just goes out there and tells things the way they need to be told. Because again, too often, and you upset folk in just about every single group. So I mean, it's like you're an equal opportunity offender. Latinos, Blacks, whites, everybody. And that is the art. That shows an art form from a writer who really means what they're talking about, and one should take seriously. Well, last question here as we come close to the end. Congratulations again for your ascendance at woke. And I won't call you pro-Black. I'll just call you pro-humane. And secondly, last question is always, what would you have liked me to ask you? You've been with me before, so that question is coming. What would you have liked me to ask you that I didn't?
And I don't know why I'm never prepared for this one. Because I wanted to discuss the Writers and Editors of Color group. We did that.
Go ahead,
the article.
please.
But yeah, it's an interesting. I like it because in the Writers and Editors of Color group, we do a lot of things, a lot of projects. Like we do the Black History 365 project, which we write about little known Black history, throughout the year. It doesn't have to just be Black History Month. The case for the 1619 project has been pretty exciting. We've gotten the attention of Nicole Hannah-Jones. She retweeted my article, and I have to give her credit because I think it was because of her that it blew up, because there was a lot of talk in the Black community and on Black Twitter and in Black spaces about my article, and most of it was positive. and a lot of people were surprised that any Latinos even spoke out against the 1619 project, because a lot of things in the Latino community stay in the Latino community. It's weird like that. But so yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed the project. I enjoy the community, and growing the community. It's a lot of fun. Um, and yeah, I mean, if I could think of what you didn't ask me about, because we did do the white Latinos thing, but I guess maybe about police accountability, because I do a lot of that. Cops hate me too, but I also have a lot more cop friends than I ever had before. So a lot of the things I write about apparently resonate with cops. So there's that, and it's all about basically anything racial justice and the intersection of politics and race. That's where I live.
Well, let me tell you, Arturo, you will be back. There's so much more that you have to talk to us about.
Yeah.
It was my pleasure having you, Arturo Dominguez, the
All right.
editor and founder of the Antagonist magazine, and recently elevated to leadership of the writers and editor of color. Thank you so kindly for having been with Politics Done Right.
Thank you for having me, Alberto.
Arturo Dominguez is a friend. He's an author. He's a hell of a writer, now in leadership at Woke. So we were very happy to have Arturo with us. Now it's time for you guys, because you are the most important part of the show. And as Arturo spoke, I saw a lot of conversation going on. Of course, I couldn't follow all because I've been trying to make this stuff work. So, I mean, I know we're not in sync, people, but forgive me, I'll clean it up. Welcome aboard AVQ, Rose Williams, May Wood, Daniel Ledo, Petition Queen, also known as Linda of the Independent Voters of America, Nanette Bird Smith. Welcome aboard. Continuing, Lee Grant. Hi, all. Who else have we got here? Norman Reynolds. Welcome to Politics Done Right. Continuing with our list, we've got Mike Cisak is here with us as well. Ken Mas está aquí. We have Nanette Bird Smith, and we have coming down, I'm still Tom C. Welcome aboard. If I forget your name, just drop me another line and I will be more than happy to remember to put it out there. So let me start with some of the conversation going on here. No apparent echo anymore. I'm glad that I fixed that particular problem, if not the sync. I'm on YouTube, could not find an FB stream. The FB stream is there now, I promise thee it is. Let's see, how are we today from Maywood? We are just doing fine. Looks like it's I know Lee Grant was going to say something like this. Lee Grant says, looks like it's Let's Talk Race Day. Not really, actually, believe it or not, this was between Afro-Latinos and black folk is what Arturo Dominguez was writing about. For those Afro-Latinos that took exception to how the 1619 project worked, and I can understand some of what they were concerned about because of what occurred in Cuba, what occurred in Peru, what occurred in Panama, and all these other places where there were black folk from Africa, just like here in the United States. When you view everything through a racial lens, all you see is race. Lee Grant, I promise you, people of color do not want to look at things through racial lens. Unfortunately, they are generally forced to do so. I am a guy that doesn't believe in race at all. But when I walk into the store, I see the eyes, I get the following. When I walk into certain churches, I see what occurs. So instead of saying that we need to stop looking at everything through racial lens, I'm going to ask you, Lee, you're a good guy. You're also a good supporter, brother Lee Grant. But I'm going to ask you to do something honestly. Lee Grant, because you're the one who made the statement, if you look at everything through race, then it is pervasive. I'm going to ask you the next time you are in an area that you are normally very comfortable in a white space and you see somebody different, whether Asian, black, or whatever, be honest with yourself. You don't have to tell me. Just be honest with yourself and tell me if you have a slight reaction beforehand. Because what people of color always see when they walk into white spaces is not necessarily racism, but an apprehension to who they are. And when we can honestly accept that to the point that we make, and I'm going to use myself as an example. I don't want to play like I'm some goody two-shoe or anything like that, because I'm not. And I always use my transformation from being a homophobe into one of the biggest gay rights supporters with a whole lot of gay friends. And let me tell you what I mean by that. There was a time in my life when if I saw two men kissing, holding hands, two women doing this, it actually had a material, even as I held back, it had a physical response on me. And that because of how the brain works and how I was cultured at home in Panama. I always tell people I have the 3 strikes: Black, Latino, and Caribbean. Very homophobic cultures. And I overcame that to the point now that it's not only mental, but it's also carnal. And it's important for us to get there. So what I tell a lot of my white brothers and sisters is something that is quite easy to understand. And that is, instead of telling people, when you hear black folk talk about, we're always talking about race, why don't you forget about it and somehow it's going to go away? Try to understand the space in which they live in and what they feel every time they go into the space and why they feel what they feel when they go into that space. All right, Daniel Ledo says, straight from the website, white culture is a tool of white supremacy. He believes your culture is racist. He believes if you're white in America, you're necessary racist. Who is judging other on immutable characteristics? Hey, you know what, Daniel? That sounds just like out of the book. You were really trained well. You even have the wordology correct. You even said the words in the right order, Daniel. That's just how the white supremacists printed it. I'm not calling you one. I'm saying that's in their book. That is their pushback to people trying to move forward. AVQ says, wage slavery. Yep, so many people working for less than a living without benefits, and we need workers movement in this country. Of course. Question to the people here also listening to Egberto. Do y'all support Marxism as well, or are you also Marxist? Man, that word, you're really into that word, Daniel. Come on, man, get off of it. We just want what's good for everybody. Maywood says, went to dentist early this morning and got my teeth adjusted. Think they may work better and move comfortably. Well, that's right, my brother. Daniel Ledo, I'm a white anti-racist is what AVQ says. AVQ, you use the magical word, and based on everything you put on our board and everything you write about and you promote, you are in our A team, brother. Our nation has yet to properly address systemic racism or policing in economics, in environmental justice, etc., etc., etc. AVQ, now you see why you always have special mention on this show. Lee Grant, I worry about the racial essentialism this view brings. It starts early in nursery school. Everyone will know what each other's race is and how important that is. They don't have to go at nursery school. You know that experiment that they put black kids with white dolls, black dolls, etc., and they ask them which one they think is bad, ugly, etc., etc., etc. Remember, I want you to all ask a question. What defines ugly? What defines good or bad? What defines it? In other words, why is a big nose to some ugly, but a big nose to others beautiful? A thin nose to some ugly, thin nose to others, because those things are subjective. But when you are conditioned, when you are programmed, you start to equalize or move people into a position of what they think, right? Those kids watch TV, they watch commercials, they go to the stores with their parents, they see all these cues that are internalized. And after seeing those cues, they don't know how to express it in English. But they know a darker hue creates problems in our current society. These experiments are experiments and all the time. So to say, let's just forget it exists is one thing. I think generations down the line, we won't have to talk about it. But the transition can only occur if you talk about it. I hope you get that one, Brother Grant. Mike Cisak, Avas between, all right, I won't repeat Mike Cisak. Okay, let's see. When Norman Reynolds, when you refuse to see history and current events from time to time through the racial lens, you choose to be ignorant of a driving force in our historical past and the consequences of the past. Exactly. Norman, A+. It's like saying, look, it's like saying I picked your pocket and took all your fortune. And then I wonder, why are you poor? And then I start to help you and give you some of what I stole from you back. But I still think, why are you complaining about I'm helping you? Look, Norman, you hit the money on the head. The accumulative wealth of those who were not oppressed compared to those who were oppressed is not a thing of fiction, is a reality. Thank you for bringing that statement up, Brother Norman. Let's see. Lee Grant says, I worry about the... I read that one already. Coming down. Let's see what else I have here. Essentially, don't treat people like people. What's that, AVQ? I think that was an answer that I missed. I'll have to find this show in FB so I can laugh at you and your crazy ideas. May Wood, leave him alone, May. Tom C. says, I'm a groucho Marxist, but some things Karl Marx said make sense, such as capitalism is reckless of the health or length of life of the laborer, unless under compulsion from society. And you know what is so funny about what you just said, Tom? We don't like to admit it, right? But when that capitalism only works well under compulsion from society. In other words, it would only do that which doesn't make inordinate profits if society forces it to do that. And guess what that's called? Democratic socialism. And that is an interesting thing that people don't realize. Every time, the reason we have to have Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and all these things is to fight that which capitalism eats. And when we understand that, we don't get fearful of the terminologies when a Daniel Ledo comes in and he tries to scare you. Socialism, Marxism, it's going to be the Soviet Union where the state is going to beat you up. No, the state is you. We the people. And we only make it not we the people if we follow the fascist narrative, which is what the right promotes. It's that simple. All right, is there a way to like comments in YouTube? I don't think there's a way to like comments in YouTube. Let's see. Continuing, let's see what I got here. Berto, you're going to have a lot of commentary to read out. Best of luck through all of it. Yeah, I know, brother. I know. Lee Grant, when racism goes away, leftists and progressives will have little to talk about. No, Lee. Lee, come to me, Lee. Come to me, brother. Come to me. And by the way, continue to support us, brother. Like that. But come to me, Lee. Here's the deal. Here's the deal. Progressives, it's which one comes first, the egg or the chicken? Progressives speak a lot about racism because it's part of the equation for equity. Okay? That's why. Only reason why. And I'm not copping to progressives are such great anti-racists because they're not. There is no, and I want everybody to hear me good, including some that's going to take offense to this. Right-wing ideologues are no more or no less racist than left-wing ideologues. Okay? People are people. They have the same things. Here's the difference in ideology, however. Progressives mean I want to improve. I want to progress. I want to move forward. I want to leave the errors of my way. I'm a progressive not because I am error-free. I am a progressive because I want, for the faults that I have, I want to change. I don't want to hammer down on them. I don't want to lie to people and say America is simply the best and pat myself on the back when I know there are drones killing people, when I know that we're abusing Peru and allowing our oil companies to pollute their resources. I want to say we've made these mistakes and now we're going to atone for them. None of us are innocent. Not even the oppressed, those who have been the most oppressed, or innocent or absent of being able to be oppressors themselves. So this is not about perfection. This is about direction. Okay, para ver quién más tengo aquí. We have moved swiftly on to the book burning portion of the proceedings. That sounds like you, ABQ. What's going on, brother? Republicans are running through the fascist playbook so quickly it's hard to keep up. And that is what's going to make it burn out. Remember remember how viruses die. Remember how some of the plague and these items die. It kills so quickly that it burns itself out. If you can have a disease that is slow burning, a virus that is slow burning, it just goes through you and you live a long time sick and then die. Those types of viruses tend to last a long time. Those pandemics tend to last a long time. However, if you're in a pandemic that you get it, it kills you and you die, in as much as it's the most fatal of them all, it's the best because it burns itself out. Because the burn rate is faster than the transmission rate. That applies to medicine, it applies to physics, it applies to all these different forms of science. Peggy Lopez says, hi all from the warm days. Snow piling up on the mountains around me here in California. You know what? We need those snow packs to fill back up that Colorado basin, folks. So let's help Peggy Lopez plead for more snowpack. Daniel Ado, well, I'm not going to read that one, but maybe we'll say, yes, warm here in SoCal as well. ABQ, our nation, man, you guys are writing a lot. Our nation has been, I'm going to miss the next video, but you guys rule. Our nation has yet to properly address systemic racism in policing and economics in an environment. You are correct. Egberto, I have a mildly negative reaction to any public displays of affection. I simply turn away, not my business. Exactly. No, but what I'm saying is, I'm not talking about that shy kind of a way when you see either a woman and a man kiss or a man and a man. I'm talking about if I saw a woman and a man kiss, it was like nothing. But if I saw two men kiss, if I saw two women kiss, ironically, you know, the male mind, how that goes. But when I saw two men kiss or whatever, it used to drive me crazy because I was a homophobe. That is completely fixed on me now. And it's not only fixed mentally, it is now fixed carnally. In other words, I don't get that visceral reaction that I used to get before. Petition Queen, also known as Linda. What is Marxism to Daniel? How do you define it? Daniel could not define Marxism except under what the right wing tells him to define it as. Egberto, everyone do judge others they don't know. By now, let's say, by how a person looks, dresses, but most conservatives will not judge people's character until they see how the person acts. And I can tell you, living in a conservative state, living in a state that is more progressive than conservative, but that the progressives don't vote, but living in a very conservative area, I can tell you, Mike Cisak, that statement is completely and entirely false. Daniel Ledo says, notice how he just attacks me instead of addressing my point. I think I've addressed your point over and over again, Daniel. If there's something that I missed, forgive me. Maybe I'm mentally unstable like you told me I was before, right? Mike Cisak, Egberto, like how MLK said he hopes his kids are judged by their character instead of their skin color. Conservatives do this while leftists don't. And that's not true. If you look at all the propaganda that the right is putting out right now to really fool people into believing CRT is taught in school, they are trying to rile up your personal carnal racism, your carnal fear. That's the modus operandi of Republicans at this point. Petition Queen says, how do you, Mike Cisak, know what you are claiming about most conservatives? You mean most conservatives you know? Or you cite in a poll. Mike Cisak says, or rather, ABQ says, Mike Cisak, let's examine an example. How often would you see someone wearing pants with boxers showing? Do you judge them? I know conservatives who do. Nanette Bird Smith says, Mike Cisak, I have never heard a more comical statement. Egberto from ABQ. Egberto, if you see a comment that says 200 character limits, that's a repeat of the end of Twitch comment that went too long for the restream bot. Oh, I didn't know that. The closer all variations of human beings come mathematically equal, the harder it is and will become for the white mathematical majority to accept any form of equality. That is what we're seeing right now, Peggy. And that's a prescient statement of yours, my dear lady. Petition Queen says, what if it's a case that socialism has been propping up capitalism? When socialism failed, and it has in the world, what happened to capitalism? Let me put a corollary onto that, Petition Queen. Socialism was never allowed, and I'm not talking about the socialism that people preach about, because what people preach about socialism is a type of communism that was attempted in Russia, which is nothing more than pseudo-fascism, right? Socialism, the word itself says it all. Social security and all these other things. Freedom is what it talks about. It talks about capitalism is not dependent on democracy, right? First of all, a corporation is not democratically run. A corporation is run solely by those who invest capital in it, as opposed to a government, social government, where all of us have equal access to success and equal access to define how we are going to live. Now, we have, in America, what we had to do is we had to demonize everything with the word social in it, because we understood that if people understood the draconian nature of unfettered capitalism, they would never go for it. They don't see it as the extension of slavery. They don't see it that way because it has been made antiseptic. And I've gone over that in many details many a times. If you take a look at slavery, the slave owner had to clothe you because you were property and he didn't want you sick. He had to feed you because you were property that he wanted work out of, and he had to turn the food energy into the plantation energy to do the crop, etc. He had to give you medical care because if his machine broke down, he had to fix it so that machine can continue to make him money. So slavery was a very expensive proposition for the master. And yeah, he whipped his slave and all of that just when that slave reached that point that it was no longer profitable for him with a slave of that nature. Capitalism upped the ante. I'm not talking about the executives in capitalism or the tier one people in capitalism that are the managers and the executives and the shareholders. I'm talking about the average worker. The average worker, that guy says, come and work for me. I'll pay you an agreed upon salary. Remember, that master had to pay a lot for healthcare, clothing, food, and make sure you stay alive. In capitalism, you say, I'll work for this, and if I cannot work, go home. If I cannot get health insurance, die, go home. I have no responsibility toward that working unit. That unit that provides me work, I have no accountability to it. Now, early in the 20th century, they made deals with unions and so forth to tie things like healthcare to your job. But they even turned tying healthcare into a liability. Because healthcare was attached to the job, you stayed longer with the job than you wanted to, and it's even get worse. Because insurance companies now had the ability to say, and if you get sick under insurance and you move job, you no longer had to be covered. We are good at narratives and we are good at telling the stories in such a manner that people just accept it based on the indoctrination they receive. But when you break it down and analyze it and see reality, suddenly it becomes a bit differently. The state beats us up today through low wages, no universal health care, workers paying taxes, corporations causing bad air quality. Exactly. And it's not the state causing that, it's the corporate purchase of politicians. That is why we need a grassroots movement, Peggy Lopez. Nanette Bird-Smith, let's see what else I have here. We're running close on time, so I have to be careful here. Egberto, I had all I can stomach from these so-called conservatives today. They have overrun your show. Thanks for all you do. Thank you, Nanette. Don't do that, Nanette, my dear beautiful lady. That is the idea behind the conservative methodology. Beat you down till you just throw your hands up and don't vote, and then they control everything. That is what you do. We always have to stay in the game and then convert some of them, and we'll convert quite a few of them, to tell you the truth. Rose Williams, trying to create an equitable society and uniform society. Neighborhood in Queens growing up was very diverse. We loved it. You get the point, Rose. But then again, I know you. That's who you are. Masticator, wow, those guys even realize his twisted racism. We're Lee Grant Progues always at war with history. No, we're not. We just tell history, the truthful history. Maywood, thank you. I was wondering if they could see my replies. Egberto, the idea for profit healthcare is solely an American concept. Nearly every other major socialized health, because it makes sense. It's a humane thing to do. Petition Queen says, socialism as opposed to social democracy failed and on its heels witnessed the implosion of capitalism. Both grew out of a past era. The better forms of both have to work things out in a fair debate. Tom C. Socialism is not the same as Marxism. Democratic socialism is highly successful in Scandinavian countries. Exactly. Nordic model combines a market economy and economic efficiency. And I want a market economy. Now, economic efficiency, however, is not relegated to the private sector. Let's look at what's happening today. The inflation today is caused by the private sector. The just-in-time inventory that is now screwing us all was created by the private sector. Efficiency is not relegated solely to the private sector. It's relegated to those who are leading, whether it's the private sector or the public sector. So we need to decouple efficiency and private sector. Efficiency is whoever is doing the job correctly and efficiently. Let's see. A.V. Key said, no, nearly about it. It's USA is the only country that does not have universal single. You corrected me. You corrected me. I said nearly. Only. You're correct on that point. Look, we're getting close to the end of the program. And you know what I didn't do at all today? I didn't ask anybody to support the show. So I'm going to do that now. So I want to ask you guys to please, if you are on YouTube, click that join button and please become a part of our PDR posse. Become a part of the PDR posse by clicking that join button. If you are on YouTube, if you're in some other network, please go to politicsdoneright.com/YouTube, politicsdoneright.com/YouTube, and I'm going to see if I can get to the donation links. I'm on a different computer for these links because whenever I found what the issue was, but I don't understand it. Whenever we have Chrome working in concert with the broadcast software, the CPU usage goes ridiculously high. And then we start to get drop packets and so forth. So what I want to ask is, please visit us at politicsdoneright.com/support. Politicsdoneright.com. Let's see if I can get that in there. Look like I'm on the wrong keyboard. You know, when you have all these different technical problems. All right, there we go. I want to say copy that. And we'll go ahead and say, go to politicsdoneright.com/support, politicsdoneright.com/support to get our books. Please support the books. You'll learn quite a bit. Go to politicsdoneright.com/books to go ahead and get our hoodies and stuff at our store. Go to politicsdoneright.com/store. You can also visit us at PayPal and Patreon. That is politicsdoneright.com/PayPal and politicsdoneright.com/Patreon. Look, we are getting near the end. Well, we are at the end of the show. It's actually at 5 o'clock here in the East, 4 o'clock Central, and of course, it is 2 o'clock in the West. Mountain time? Okay, I have to remember that. It's 3 o'clock Mountain time. We are in all times. I have people from every single time zone in here. I want to thank you guys for being here. I could not do this without you. You are the essence of Politics Done Right. Please remember to share. I don't want to be just talking to the choir. We're not. We have Daniel Lado, Mike Cisak, Lee Grant, and several others in the room that are conservative. And they're here all the time. I thank you guys for being here. Stick around. Maybe something will and not only that, bring the fight. Bring the fight. That's what we want. Bring the fight. Anyway, we got to get out of here. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right, and you know how I end this baby. I am what? Out. We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead, number one, subscribe to our channel, and number two, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.